We continue to cover a developing story. The NBA has suspended Ja Morant for 25 games to start next season. Earlier today, the league released a statement from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver saying the suspension will come with some conditions for Morant's return. What's been the reaction from inside the organization to Ja's 25-game suspension here?
I would say a pretty muted reaction, and you read what I would describe as a terse statement for, as they put it, this latest episode in the suspension. And, you know, the last time in March, you got a lot of searching for a silver lining within the Grizzlies organization. Hey, this is the wake-up call he might have needed. He really does realize what's at stake now. That sort of thing. It's hard to come back when he does the same thing essentially a couple months later and have that same sort of approach. So obviously the Grizzlies are going to do whatever they can to support Ja, to help Ja, to try to guide him. But projecting the optimism, I'm not hearing a whole lot of that right now. I think it's time for actions to speak louder than prepared statements.
So what can you tell us about how his suspension is going to impact the Grizzlies offseason here?
I'm not sure that it will very much. They have a starting caliber point guard that they can plug into the starting lineup in Tyus Jones. Look, they've played a lot without Ja, whether it's injury or suspension, in the last couple of years. When Tyus Jones starts, they're 34-15. So perhaps they might try to find some depth at point guard, whether that's in the draft or the lower cost of free agency. But look, they have a gaping hole in the starting lineup they need to fill. They are moving on from Dillon Brooks. They have been very aggressive trying to package picks to find his replacement when he was on the roster, much less now that they're allowing him to leave in free agency. So I think that will still continue to be the primary focus. And obviously, this is a franchise that's known for the last month that a suspension somewhere in this range was coming down, but I don't anticipate an overreaction in terms of personnel moves to try to fill a hole left by Ja's suspension, simply because they've been down this road before for various reasons, and they've had a lot of success with Tyus Jones as their starting point guard.
Right. The Grizzlies have won 67% of games without Ja Morant over the last two seasons. Tim MacMahon, thank you so much for joining us here on NBA Today. Ramona Shelburne, Richard Jefferson, Mark Spears, Zach Lowe are all with me now as well. So, Zach, I want to start with you on this one. What are the implications? We just heard Tim reference Tyus Jones, right, for the Grizzlies in light of Ja's suspension.
I honestly think nothing. I mean, there's nothing they can really do except hope that Ja makes the changes that he said he's going to make. And if he doesn't, if this proves to be a lasting issue that derails them season after season, then they have to change the direction of their franchise. For now, I just think you assume, hope for the best. You have a great backup point guard. You just read their winning percentage without Ja Morant. It's outstanding. Ride out 25 games, continue building just as you were building before, reincorporate him, and move on. If we're having the same conversation in a year, it's a different story. But we could look back on this as just sort of not a blip on the radar, but a small challenge that they had to overcome in terms of their team building. I don't really think anything has to change, to be honest.
You know, I think we were all at that press conference at the NBA Finals when Adam Silver essentially said that was asked, what's going to get through to Ja Morant? What is we're going to get him to not behave in this manner and not do things that are reckless with guns and be on social media in this fashion? He said, quite frankly, I don't know. And this is his attempt to correct the behavior. This is his attempt to change the behavior. And I understand, I've thought about this one a lot because he hasn't broken any laws, okay? This is an open carry state in Tennessee, and in that statement the NBA issued, you can see that Ja Morant essentially said, yes, I knew I was being recorded. Yes, I knew what was happening because it's in the statement. Yeah. But you know, Donald Sterling didn't break any laws either. Neither did Robert Sarver, essentially. This is Adam Silver's right to suspend him for conduct detrimental to the league. And so that's where we arrive at this 25-game penalty. It's more than what he got on the first one. And I thought it was interesting. Nike came with a statement as well saying we stand behind Ja Morant. We want to support him on and off the court. And so this is an attempt to correct behavior that is reckless and is not in the best interest of the league.
One of the things that Adam Silver said in the statement today, and is also sort of alluded to in the various conversations in his press conference and the conversation we had on ESPN ahead of the draft lottery, is that what is enough time to leave Ja Morant time to reflect on this and to also look into what what is truly important to change this behavior. And 25 games is certainly a large step up from the 8-game suspension that we saw a couple of weeks ago. But it also penalizes Mark Spears, in some ways, the Memphis Grizzlies. And they're going to they have huge expectations for themselves to come back further than they did in the postseason last year. How do you expect this to affect the team?
Yeah, I do wonder if the NBA took into account the 2 Washington Post stories that were certainly, to me, much more damaging than the other things that Ja did. But you got an NBA All-Star that's at least out 30% of the season. 30% of the season, where do the Grizzlies go from here? I never really understood this. Dylan Brooks is out. We don't want him back. That thing. I know he gets a lot of texts. I know he's not the greatest offensively decision-wise. And Ramona pointed out long ago that, he wanted a big contract, perhaps $25 million per season. But how do you replace that 24 points a game? Memphis has a $12.12 million mid-level exception. If they stay without Brooks, they have to replace Morant, his 26 points a game, with 2 unproven guards, in Zaire Williams and David Roddy, who average less than 7 points per game. So there are some shooting guards on the free agent market if they don't get Brooks back, but they might have to do a kumbaya and hug Brooks and bring him back, because 30% of the season is very detrimental to this team that was 11-10 without Ja last season.
Really quickly, Malika, to your point about the Memphis Grizzlies being affected, they should be affected because ultimately everything that we saw, the Memphis Grizzlies knew what was going on behind the scenes. So the fact that they didn't act, the fact that they didn't punish him, the fact that they didn't send messages and let him know, like, this is not how our organization works, this is where it happens and it should affect them. Okay, if you guys aren't going to handle your stuff in-house, then we're going to handle it outside the house. We have control. So those 25 games is going to affect you guys a ton, and it should.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.